when I started with the lasers 25 years ago, I was definitely fascinated what you could do with this without sticking a needle into the tissue. But you also saw that there were some limitations. Over the years, when you started up with this, you saw that treatment was really good, but the deeper the tissue you wanted to treat, lower is the energy you bring from you can bring from the topic of the skin to the tissue. For example, if you want to treat a hip joint, you have to penetrate the scapula. You have to bring the photon through the scapula into the joint. And this is not very easy to do.
Yeah, hi and welcome to a new episode of the new Light Medicine podcast. Today I'm very honored to have Dr. Volkmar Kreisel from Germany as my guest. He's an anesthesiologist with a clinic here in Germany, mainly focusing on pain management and integrative medicine. He's also the vice president of our International Society for Medical Laser Applications. So he also published a couple of books and research studies. So he can be considered as one of the pioneers in this whole field of photobiomodulation and laser therapy, as he's really using all those new applications like intravenous, interstitial, transcranial laser therapies for many years already. So I think he will be a great guest. He has a lot of clinical experience to share. So yeah, again, I'm very happy. Hi, Volkmar. Glad that you are here
Hi,
with us
Robert.
today.
My pleasure to be here and to talk with you.
Thank you. Yeah, so maybe we can start with you telling us a little bit about your medical scientific background and also how your whole interest into this whole field of photobiomodulation or laser therapy started.
Well, as you've mentioned before, I'm an anesthesiologist, and right now it's more than 35 years ago that I started in this field of medicine. And also there's a part of anesthesiology, the pain management. And this was a reason why I started with acupuncture in the middle or end of the 19th. And then there was a new approachment for acupuncture. It was called laser acupuncture. This was about right now 25 years ago when I started up using some lasers to stimulate acupuncture points. Just in the beginning, I did this with a laser pen. Later, I did this with a so-called laser needle system. And well, over the years, I was fascinated more and more by this technique and what the laser could do with the tissue, not only with the acupoints, but also with the tissue. You do not burn the points, you do not cut the tissue with a laser needle, you just simulate it. And over the years, more and more the technique was developed, and there was in the beginning just a laser pen, as I mentioned. Later there was a laser shower, so you could do a laser irradiation of the whole area of the body. And what I saw in nearly every case was an improvement of the treatment. So there was a much more benefit than to use in the beginning only metal needles, later laser needles, and then later using the topic laser irradiation of a tissue of the area, for example, of a knee joint, of a lumbar spine area, and so on. Yes. This was a reason why more than about 25 years ago that I came into this field. And up to now, I'm still fascinated, and I'm happy to be in this field and to use this technique again day and for my treatments in the clinic.
So the main focus on your clinic nowadays is still mainly pain management, but I think you're also doing more things like
Right.
chronic infection, long COVID, and things like that. Maybe you can
Yes,
explain a little bit.
definitely. Well, I come from the pain management, and I started with the first experiences in low-level laser therapy with pain management. But then I saw that there are much more approaches to use this. And coming from the pain management, you also saw that the tissue was regenerated, yet you brought down inflammation in the tissue. Nowadays, we know this from thousands of scientific studies, what the lasers, what the photons do in the tissue. But in the beginning, just think back 20 years ago, this was not a big scientific background. But I saw how it worked. There was a reduction of the inflammation. There was an improvement of the microcirculation, an improvement of the cell metabolism, and in the end, an improvement of reparative and regenerative processes in the tissue. So I widened up my field, not only the pain management, but also regenerative therapies, using lasers to treat degenerative patients, to use it for regenerative therapy, for example, for long COVID. And I think we will talk about this later, but these are very good approaches to stimulate all this mechanism of action.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that you are also using the full broad spectrum of the lasers nowadays in the
Definitely.
clinic. Of course, pain management is one of the applications where it's coming from, where it has a very strong background, but of course there are more options. I think you
Definitely,
already
yeah.
talked a lot about the topical approach, like with laser acupuncture or local tissue regeneration. How do you rate the success rate or also the limitation of this topical approach? Because I know
Mhm.
you also moved a little bit towards invasive interstitial applications. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your clinical difference when it comes to comparing such applications.
So when I started with the lasers 25 years ago, I was definitely fascinated what you can do with this without sticking a needle into the tissue. But you also saw that there were some limitations. Over the years, when you started up with this, you saw that treatment was really good, but the deeper the tissue you wanted to treat, lower is the energy you bring from you can bring from the topic of the skin to the tissue. For example, if you want to treat a hip joint, you have to penetrate the scapula. You have to bring the photon through the scapula into the joint. And this is not very easy to do. You can do this in two ways. The one is you need a laser with a high power to bring the photon through this distance into the joint. On the other hand, you can bring the laser directly into the tissue, into the joint. And this is what you do with the interstitial laser therapy. For me, as an anesthesiologist, it's really cool to use this interstitial technique because you can do a puncture. You insert the laser catheter through this puncture needle and you irradiate at the spot you want to treat, for example, inside a joint, or for example, also in the lumbar spine, if you like to treat disc prolapse. You can use the laser in both ways, topic and minimal invasive, and you will have really good results just using the laser with a topic irradiation. In the several cases, you will definitely improve your results if you use the interstitial technique. So over the years, this was a reason why I widened up my field of treatments, not only the pain therapy with the topic lasers or laser needles, but also the interstitial laser therapy and also the intravenous laser therapy. So everything is a really good tool. And nowadays we also have a good scientific background what happens. And again, if you want to have a good result with your treatment, it's very, very important to bring the photons to the area you want to treat. If you bring it just on the surface of the skin, well, it's fine, but it will not have any effect. If you have to treat deeper tissues, you have to bring it into this tissue on the one hand with a laser power, high power laser, or with a interstitial laser therapy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's what we also observed in our clinical studies, of course, that the main limitations are happening when you want to go really deep into the tissue, like with,
Right.
so many people suffering from deep low back pain, from hip joint issues,
Mhm.
other shoulder issues. And yeah, I've also been fascinated by your work because I think you have been the very first one who did, for example, this interstitial application, like publishing data where you did those studies on the back pain issues. You also did some work with a combination of PRP, which was very interesting. So maybe you can share some of your clinical results here.
Definitely. Well, so we did some small studies. What happens if you do interstitial laser therapy in comparison if you do it on a topic irradiation? And every case, definitely in every case, were about 20, 25 patients for this small study. We had a significantly improvement in the and a release of pain. So all these patients were treated before with non-steroids. They were treated with physical therapy. They were treated also with a topical laser therapy. This was good, but they all had still a lot of pain in this lumbar area, for example. And using the interstitial laser therapy, in the average, it were about 3 to 4 treatments we did once a week. And in the end, the pain release was very significantly. The visual analog scale in the beginning was about 7. In the end, we were about 2 to 3. So it was halved. This was very impressive. And this was about, let's say, right now, 10 years ago. So it was a small study. Nowadays, we have much more experience with this, hundreds, thousands of patients. Meanwhile, if I have some time, I will do a check up and we'll see how the status is right now. But what we can say all in all, and as an overview, the results of the treatment are much more better as if you would do it alone with non-steroids and, for example, topical laser therapy. The same, nearly the same is with the joints. And with the joints, I especially use a combination with PRP, platelet-rich plasma. What we know nowadays is that the PRP contains a lot of different cells and enzymes, and this is a concentration of these contents that has an anti-inflammatory effect in the tissue and a reparative, regenerative effect too. There's also a small amount of stem cells inside of the. Now, if you inject this, for example, into a tissue, into a joint, and then after this, you do a laser irradiation, for example, interstitial laser irradiation in the joint, you will activate these enzymes. And so the result in the end is much more better as if you would do each of these techniques alone. So the combination has a really good synergistic effect. So this is why we do this regularly, nearly every day in the clinic for several times.
Yeah, I agree. In my opinion, this whole field of intra-articular laser or interstitial laser combined with injection therapies like PRP or stem cells, this is one of the most beneficial treatments which you can do with a laser. And yeah, we can just recommend it to all the practitioners out there working with such joint injection therapies or spinal injections. If you are trained in this at the laser, this will give you a huge additional benefit. Also, of course, take-home message here for all patients suffering from arthritis issues in the joints or from severe chronic back pain. I think this is something like a natural therapy without side effects, where you can really get a lot of benefits for your condition. I think you would agree on that, right?
Absolutely, I agree. And this is a very strong tool. If you can use this technique, if you know how to do an injection under sterile conditions, this is important. You will have no big side effects. So over these years, more than 10 years of experience right now with this technique, we never ever had a serious side effect. So beware of inflammation, be sterile conditions. This is make your patients happy, let's say it like this.
Yeah, right. That's very important to mention that it's a huge difference compared to steroid injections or other things where you would expect more side effects, but this is really just a very natural but still highly effective therapy.
Definitely.
Yeah, so let's move on to the field of intravenous laser therapy. So I think you're also pretty experienced in this area. Maybe you can also share for which applications or for which diseases you are using the IV laser, maybe in synergies with other therapies? That's always very interesting for practitioners and
Yes.
patients.
Yes, the IV laser, I think right now I started to use in 2010 or 11. And at this time, there were just a few wavelengths available. I think it was red, near infrared, and green. This is what we are started at the first time. And over the years, there was a big development in this treatment and the options. And nowadays we have the blue, the yellow, the ultraviolet lasers. Every laser wavelength has some own specifics. And when we started about 15 years ago with this IV laser, we used it just to bring down inflammations and to improve the ATP production, bring up power in the cells and to improve the all in all state of the patient. So you also used it in the beginning in some way to bring up the activity of the patients. Over the years, we used it more and more also in the regenerative field. And I used it, for example, for chronic inflammatory diseases, autoimmune diseases, for example, rheumatic diseases, autoimmunological diseases like morbus Crohn or colitis ulcerosa, but also neurological diseases like Parkinson's disease, like multiple sclerosis. And all in all, over the years, we saw that we have good results with this. And according to the development of the new laser devices, the blue, the yellow laser, the results of the treatment became better more and more over the years. And the last development was a ultraviolet laser several years ago. And nowadays we use the IV laser very successfully, for example, for the treatment of long COVID patients. And the combination of the blue, the ultraviolet laser, the green, but also red and yellow laser. So this combination has really good results if you have patients who are exhausted, who have chronic inflammation in the body, silent inflammations. And this is what we do right nowadays. We use the IV laser in several approaches, but depending on the main focus of the patient, the problems, the disease, long COVID on the one side, autoimmunological diseases on the other side, or chronic neurodegenerative we use the different wavelengths in a different combination.
Yeah, actually, the long COVID thing was my next questions. I know
Mm-hmm.
you gave a couple of good talks on our conferences on that. And of course, we always have plenty of patients listening to our podcasts here. So
Okay.
yeah, post-COVID, also post-vaccine is still an issue for many people. Typical question is also when it comes to the protocol, is it mainly the IV laser you're doing, or what other things are you combining, or what other recommendations would you give to patients suffering from long
Yeah.
COVID?
Okay. Indeed, for long COVID, the IV laser is a basis. So you have to mention what do you do with the IV laser? You stimulate a lot of different enzymes and cells in our blood. And on the one hand, you can improve the ATP production in the cells, so bring up the energy. On the other hand, you have some anti-inflammatory effects. You have an improvement of microcirculation. You have stimulation of regenerative effects. So this is the basis. But now, as we know, the problem with long COVID is that we have two main problems. The one is the mitochondria. We have a dysregulation of the mitochondria that also can bring down the energy production in the cells, and in the end brings down the power of the cells. On the other hand, we have a stimulation of the immune system, which brings on several different symptoms. For example, symptoms of the brain, symptoms of the heart, the vessels, symptoms of the liver, the ears, the kidneys, and so on. So depending on the case, we combine the IV laser with topical laser therapy. For example, we use a laser helmet for the patients who are suffering mainly from brain fog or problems with concentration and so on. We also use a laser shower, for example, for patients who suffer from problems with the lungs, who have problems with if they walk and so on, they have with their breathing, they have an reduction of their breathing. We also use a topical laser therapy also for stimulation, for example, of the solar plexus. And the solar plexus is a nerve plexus from the vegetative nerve system in combination of sympathetic and parasympathetic fibers. So if you use topic irrigation here in this area on your abdomen, you can stimulate this vegetative nerve system. And what we found out over the years is that it's also an improvement of the situation of these long COVID patients. So all in all, when you see, we started up in every case as a basis with the IV laser. Then depending on the symptoms, we use, for example, a laser helmet, we use a topical laser therapy. And again, also what we're doing some IV, we use some supplements to improve these therapy effects.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, and that's also a thing I always try to explain to people that you covered it very well, that intravenous laser is just the perfect base therapy, as it's really
Right.
opening the microcirculation. It helps the body to digest or to absorb nutrients, infusions, all the other things you can do in your clinic in a better way. And therefore, it's the perfect base therapy. And then you can follow up with infusion therapies, injection therapies, supplements, and all the things you already mentioned. So you can basically use it in all different kind of disorders of
That's
the
it.
body.
The IV laser is the guide, and then you add some other therapies to this. And in the end, there's a synergistic effect which is much more powerful than if you would use just one of these treatment options alone.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect conclusion. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then when you now already mentioned my next point, which was like when we talk about long COVID, many people are suffering from brain fog, but it's
Mhm.
not only brain fog. So many people these days, we are always busy, we are always stressed, our brain is always stressed.
Yeah.
Brain issues are increasing dramatically when we think about dementia, Parkinson's, many things you already mentioned are really on the rise. Mental disorders, I think we have estimates are saying we have about 1 billion people worldwide nowadays suffering from some sort of mental issues. So
Yeah.
the brain is something where we should really focus on. And as you know, we did that now with our new development, which we created over the last 2 years. So this is now about this whole field of transcranial laser therapy for brain health. And again, also here, you have been one of the pioneers with our older helmet version already. I think even before you did like laser acupuncture on the skull, on the brain.
Right.
Then we had this LED helmet with infrared technology for penetrating into the brain. And now we will launch the new development with the lasers. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your general experience, what you experienced so far with transcranial infrared therapies of the brain.
Yes, you're right. So in the beginning, I started with a laser acupuncture, several points on the scalp to treat with a laser near infrared wavelengths. You have to penetrate the bone of the scalp. So it's not a good idea to use green or blue laser light because it's just a millimeter in penetration. Red is also not so really good. It's just 1 centimeter. So if you want to come deeper into the tissue, it's important to use the near infrared wavelengths. And in the beginning, indeed, I used the laser acupuncture needles to irrigate some areas of the scalp. But as you know, well, we have the hairs usually on our head. And so it's not very easy to bring the laser needles to the skin. So I think it was in 2017 when the laser helmet came up. And indeed, I was one of the first who started up with the treatments of this helmet. And again, like I used in the beginning, when I started off with the laser, I was also fascinated from this therapeutic option, because right now you could stimulate the brain through the bone in a way that was effective. Again, you have a lot of loss because of the skull bones. It's about 95% you have to have loss of energy. So there's just a little amount that is inside the brain. But if you have a laser helmet like we started up in 2017 with a Weber medical helmet, well, it had enough power to penetrate the skin and to bring in a sufficient amount of energy to the brain. And in the beginning, I started up with patients suffering from stroke. And this was very impressive because when they came to the clinic, usually most of the patients came really late, but 2 or 3 of them were very early in the beginning. Right here, one was indeed my mother. I treated with a stroke. We used to treat her 2 days after the stroke, and it was very impressive to see how she reacts, because on the MRI, you saw that there was a very fast reduction of the penumbra and the area which was affected. And from this point on, we started to use a laser helmet in different application forms. We also used it for neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson's disease, for example, and later also for Alzheimer. And again, we saw that there was an improvement. Well, it's not a wonder, but it's a really improvement if you use this therapy. And most of the patients showed a benefit. And later we also used it also for another indication. This was the anti-depression therapy. And also we have good results with this, depending also on the case. But indeed, we found out that there was also a good indication to use it for antidepressive patients, to use it for patients suffering from fear, for example. All these psychosomatic diseases can benefit from this treatment. The thing is, it's not only 1 or 2 or 10 treatments. You have to use it for a longer time. So that means, well, on the one hand, the patient comes to the clinic 2 times a week, for example. But if you have a disease like Parkinson's disease, it's not only used for a few weeks. You have to use it for a long time. And this was the reason why we usually recommend to buy such a helm for a home use for the patients. And again, long COVID is also such a very interesting disease. And also when we do our treatments with the long COVID patients, the IV laser, additionally the laser helmet, in the end, the patients come to the clinic again and again for a series of IV lasers, and they use the laser helmet at home too.
Yeah. Now that you were talking about mental issues like anxiety, I was just remembering this one very impressive case. I guess you also remember this one boy who came to you, or where we recommended your clinic, who was suffering from anxiety. He was not basically able to go to school anymore because of
Right.
this. And I think we did this protocol. Maybe you can explain more in detail, but I think we also did the IV yellow laser with a hypericin. And I just remembered that I got an email from the father after a while, and he said it's incredible, like a miracle. He's back to school, and this was a very impressive case, right?
Yeah, indeed. This was a combination therapy again, the IV laser plus the laser helmet. And indeed, this was a young boy, was suffering from, on the one hand, an infection. It was a COVID infection, and with some really severe anxiety and, also like a burnout and exhaustion and chronic fatigue syndromes. And then we started up laser therapy. And in the beginning, it was definitely difficult, because when I talked to him, he did not look at me. It was just the father who talked and the mother, but not the boy. And I explained what we did and so on. He was just like this, never looked up and never started to do anything. But then we started up with the therapy, and it was, let's say, about 4 weeks, something like this. And then there was a change from one treatment to the other. And the one treatment, he came like this, and next one he looked at me and he was smiling. And this was really impressive also for me. And from this point on, from treatment to treatment, there was an improvement. And it was several years ago when the mother told me, then it was also Christmas time. In former times, he used to play piano. I think we started in the therapy in October, something like this. And in December, on Christmas time, he started again to play some piano with his brother together. And this was the first time he used to do this, because the whole year before he did nothing, definitely nothing. And he also could not go to school, and all the therapies around medical treatment did not work. So in the end, it was definitely very impressive for all the family, and also for me and our clinic, to see what you can do for this patient. And nowadays, he's good. From time to time, we have some email contact, and it's good. It's really impressive. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great to hear such an emotional case study. So thank you for
definitely.
sharing that.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so what would you expect now from the new helmet development?
Mhm.
Or yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So because I've seen so many different developments over the last 20, 30 years, and I saw that every development brings an optimating therapy with it. It's the same, but I also think that this will bring with it. So the new helmet uses not only one wavelength, but 3 wavelengths. So a really interesting thing, because it has some big effect on the penetration depth. So I think on the one hand, with these different wavelengths, you can treat much more or much more effective than we do right now. And on the other hand, the new helmet has different modules. So right now, if we start up to use this older laser helmet, we can irradiate the whole scalp. We can't use the front or the back scalp, but we cannot use, or we could not focus it to a special area. So, for example, if nowadays I have a patient with a stroke, I have to use the whole helmet LEDs. I think when the new helmet comes up, I can do a much more focused therapy with it, which is also much more effective. So we have a really big effect right now. So what I want to say is that the old helmet is really good for right now 8 years. But I'm really excited to see what we can do right now with a new helmet. And I think that this is a big step forward in the transcranial photobiomodulation therapy.
Yeah, I hope we will meet your expectations. And of course, you will be one of the first
Yes,
clinics to
thank
get
you.
one. And we are, of course, very excited to get your feedback again. And then
Mhm.
maybe next year we can jump on another episode here and you can share your experiences. So I think many people will be excited to hear that. Great. Yeah, so coming towards the end, maybe a more general question. So, yeah, what are your thoughts? Where are we heading in the field of regenerative medicine, in longevity? Which other tools maybe you would be on your wish list when it comes to research, to developments? Where do you see gaps or opportunities? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
So I think a really good tool, definitely, and a basic tool, is the IV laser. For with the swallow piece, you just remember that the IV laser 20 years ago was also used for sportsmen to improve their activity and so on, to bring up the power. nowadays is another, but in the end, we see that we can improve the metabolism of the body. And this is also a good approach if you think about regenerative effect and longevity. We all have a lot of problems around. We have some toxic substances in our air, in our food, in our water. We have a lot of stress, and all these things we have to bring under control with our immune system. Otherwise, we have inflammation in our body, silent inflammation areas that will kill some of our power. Using, for example, an IV laser could also bring on our immune system and to improve our situation, to have some longevity effect in the long run. So I think for the future, this laser therapy will not only be used to improve therapeutic effects and to treat people who have some diseases, but also to improve the whole situation and of the body, and to have some preventive effects. So I think this is also an idea and a good approach to start with this therapy, not only to treat diseases and problems, just more to avoid that they will develop. For the long run, V laser is a very good thing, and I'm really excited maybe to learn more about new wavelengths. There are also some options, I think so, and to see what we can do to bring on the quality of life for the younger patients right now, because we all get older, and this is one option, the IV laser, the laser therapy itself, and especially the field of photobiomodulation therapy to bring us to a good life and to improve our situation and to avoid several diseases.
Yeah, thank you for this wonderful
Mhm.
conclusion. So thank you again also for being here with
Thank
us
you.
today. In the end, would you like to share anything from your side, like your clinic information, any upcoming books or events you would like
Mhm.
to share or tell
Yes.
people about?
Okay. I've written several books, and but at this moment there's no new book planned. The latest one was published in 2024. So again, the time it's a long way to bring up a book and to write it, to publish it. It takes several years, and I do this beside my clinic. So my clinic, if you're interested in to find the website, the clinic is called Clinic for Integrative Medicine. It's in Germany, in the area of Stuttgart, and you can find this on the World Wide Web at clinic-d.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So yeah, everybody in this region or also from other countries who are looking for all the things we talked about today, like if you're suffering from pain issues, from joint, spinal issues, but also for systemic conditions, long COVID or whatever therapy you might need, I think the clinic of Dr. Kreisel is a very good location for you. So check out his website, check out his books, and if you're a practitioner, he's also always lecturing at our conferences. So this is always a great opportunity to connect and meet in person. Yeah, so again, thanks to everyone out there listening to us today. Thank you, Volkmar, for your great contribution.
Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you to everybody listening to this podcast. I hope that you will have heard some very interesting and maybe some new things, and give you some ideas to new approaches in therapy and treating maybe some symptoms.
Perfect. So thank you again and hope to see you at one of our next episodes.